Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's Derek Lobo here, and thank you very much for joining us. We've got a jam-packed session for you today, and I want to say, Canada, it's time to start building apartments. Purpose-built new rental apartment construction across the nation makes sense today.
Well, thank you, and thank you for this opportunity to talk to everyone, Derek. And Rick, I don't know if you know this, but the third project you showed on your slides, the Hebron deal, was one of our projects. But we've seen that you've done a fabulous job leasing it up. Yeah, just a little background on our firm. Again, I'm the CEO of Humphreys and Partners Architects, and we have 8 U.S. offices and 3 overseas offices and multiple affiliate offices worldwide. We do all types of developer projects, but our primary focus is multifamily and apartments. Just an idea on scale. Last year in the United States, we did 20,000 apartment units, which was about 12 to 15% of the U.S. market. We're very fortunate to be coast to coast, and we actually do work in Canada and have worked in Toronto and multiple times, and Montreal. We are probably, because of the recent regulatory changes in Canada, are getting several inquiries from Canadian developers for apartment products. So what I thought I'd do is give a quick overview, and it'll be somewhat in-depth too, just of the different product types we're seeing in the United States and in North America that are, as we would say, hot. I'm asked because, again, we're the largest apartment architect in North America, these 3 questions basically. Who is the renter, and where is the product being done, and what type of product? So who's the renter? In the U.S., and again, Canada and the U.S. echo each other, the home ownership rate is dropping dramatically in the U.S., so it could go as low as 60%, and there'd be 7.4 million more renters. There have been 2 years of people not renting just because of the economy. That's a pent-up demand of around 1 million. 2 years of echo boomers, the children of baby boomers, with no job, and so there's 6 million of pent-up demand in the U.S., and I've got a chart on Canada that you have a similar situation. And 74 million baby boomers, as I'm one of those, are now looking at getting out of a big house and maybe moving into an urban area or something like that that's less maintenance to take care of. Mortgages are harder to get here, and these kids, these echo boomer kids, which is a large number of them, do not want to be stuck in one place. They do not want to own a piece of property at this time. And in the U.S. anyways, there was a lot of apartments built in the 60s and 70s that are totally obsolete at this point, so it's time for replacement. So the next question people ask me, and again, this is in the U.S., but I'll get to a point here that might be of interest. I'm asked, where is it hot? So what we did, we had our IT department populate a U.S. map of all of our contracts that went out last year for multifamily or apartments. So here is the map of the U.S. Now, this is approximately 500 projects. They didn't all go into construction. Only 80 of them went into construction documents, but this is all of our contracts out. So you can see in the U.S., just by the number of units or dots, like in Southern California, Northern California, Seattle, the Washington market, the Texas market, the Florida market, where things are happening. But more importantly, what I want you to see is these are some of the different types of projects we do, and it has a listing of them on the right. A suburban, inexpensive apartment called the Breezeway type product. We did 50 proposals out. We have a new product design called an EMAX, which is a high-density, all-wood frame with a wood frame parking garage. Urban is something I'll show you in a little bit. It's a very high-efficient project. 82 proposals out on that. 12 high-rise apartment proposals, and that was all in the last 6 months of last year. Podium projects, I think you know what that is, building over parking. Student housing, we're also the largest student housing architect in the U.S. We did 75 proposals, and then a product we call the Big House. I'll show you that. It looks like a big single family, but 10 units in a building. And then wrap and mixed-use wrap, a total of about 46 of those, which means you're wrapping around a parking garage. These are our U.S. offices. We also have an affiliate office across the bay in Vancouver and one in Toronto. Just looking at some of your market, I wanted to look up some of the numbers, and there's obviously a large potential and increase of rental occupancy through 2026, and you can see the different cities. That sounds pretty exciting. And then, as I mentioned, we echo each other. Here's the actual curve on children being born in both of our countries, and you can see a slight uptick coming now just in the age time to rent. Also, I picked up this comment: Conference Board of Canada Canadian Outlook long-term economic forecast predicted the share of multi-housing units will increase from its current 47% to 68% by 2030. So all exciting news. Now let's talk about product. Stephen Jobs, I thought this was appropriate with his passing. You can't just ask customers what they want and then try to give that to them by the time you get it built. I want something new. So what is it? Let's just talk about suburban first, and then we'll get into urban. This is what I was talking about. We call it the big house. Now, these are in 3 different locations in the U.S., San Diego on the bottom left, and this is in the Maryland area on the bottom right, and in Texas in the top right corner. And actually, the one in Texas was recently owned by a large insurance company in the United States, and they sold it to the Trammell Crow Family Trust. But all of these are relatively inexpensive to build. Hopefully it looks like a single-family home to you, but each of them has 10 units in every building. They all have their own direct entry. So there's no hallway. It's a 100% efficient building. So this is in direct competition to a suburban market of townhomes or of single-family. And it's done very, very well. We've done over 200 of these projects of 250 units apiece. Suburban urban. We are doing projects in suburbia where we can't spend the amount of money that we do in an urban location just because of the rent rate. So we found a way to get very high density product surface parked, maybe a 1.5 or 1.7 surface parking. This property is called our E-Urban, and it gets 40 units per acre surface park. High density infill. Again, I'm just giving you a tasting of different types of projects. Very common is we're doing a podium project like this on the right in Fairfax, Virginia, or a wrap project like this property down here in Orange County, California. This is the bottom left one is by Equity Residential, a well-known large REIT in the U.S. Very common properties, and these are in most cases around $100 per square foot net rentable. High-rise, as I mentioned, is coming back. Of course, on a rental side versus a for-sale side, you know, very tough to make the numbers work, but it's all about the, you know, not going overboard on the finishes and so forth, and getting it in the, you know, a good return. The property on the bottom left, looking over the Mississippi River, that was a Carlisle 40-story tunnel form building, which saved quite a bit of the time on construction time and overall construction cost. Now, suburban urban, and more in depth on that. This property that I showed you earlier, again, is all surface park, but to give it kind of an urban look that has some angled parking as you come in, even though it's all surface park. And here's a close-up view of it. This is kind of in a coastal flavor. It kind of looks like it has retail along the base, but it really does not in this suburban location. 4-story wood frame. I don't think we'll be seeing palm trees in Toronto, but large pool area, kind of a resort feeling. The courtyards are very small, and but when you look at the size of them in this layout, they feel good. They have a right proportion, and most people want to live viewing the courtyard. Now, the secret to this property is there is no corridors. We have elevator lobbies that you come off of, and then all the units are off of each of those elevator lobbies. But then those lobbies are connected by a fire corridor. And that turns the efficiency up very high on the property. It becomes 87% efficient and only has half of the corridors that a normal property does. So if you save 20% of the buildable area of the building where you don't have to build it, and let's just say at $100 a foot, because it's easy to figure, on a 300,000 square foot project, that's $6 million that you don't have to build. Here's a property, the same type of design, a suburban property, but it also has no corridors, but since it's only 3 stories, there's no elevators. And Rick, this is the property you're doing such a wonderful job, your company's doing such a wonderful job of managing, very similar to our e-urban. Now, high density infill. We're doing a lot of retail over podium structures with 4 or 5 stories on top of that. This is a student housing project very close to Southern Methodist University. Currently, they've leased all of the retail out, and they leased 50 apartment units the first week they were open. More retail with multifamily above. This is in Tampa. Again, in these designs, both of these, they are concrete on the first level and wood frame, either 4 or 5 story wood frame above. This is a public-private partnership where it's a public parking garage in a mixed-use development and 4-story wood frame over the retail below. A similar situation. Again, this is the typical type product we're doing in suburbia and sometimes on a peripheral urban location, but it's wrapping the parking garage so it's hidden from outside, even from inside, but gives it an urban look. And in Minneapolis, this property has been announced and about ready to start. I don't know if you know of Whole Foods grocery store, but that's what's going in the corner there. And this is actually 5/2 and has a large courtyard deck behind there and very high density, total infill location in downtown Minneapolis. You know, I just want to give you a potpourri of things that are happening. They're new and different in the U.S. Southern California in the Orange County area, again, a wrap. And a wrap, again, is wrapping the parking garage with the units versus doing a
Yeah, Mark, it's Derek here. Can you spend a little bit more time describing this wrap? Because I don't think we have any wrap product in Canada at all. So just flush it out a little bit more, would you?
Sure. Actually, I know there are some in Vancouver, for example. The Vancouver Building Code doesn't allow an exposed parking garage to the street. So typically what we've seen there, which is similar to what I've been showing you here on wraps, they will put either stacked units or townhomes facing the street, hiding the parking garage behind it, and totally wrap the units around the parking garage so it's not exposed to the street. But that parking garage is all above grade. It's not subterranean or podium. Podium means to us that we put the parking garage below the building. Wrap means the parking garage is above and the units wrap around it. We like that principle and design for 2 reasons. One is it's much cheaper. It costs approximately half as much to build the parking garage above versus below. And if you hide it, as you've done, as we've seen you guys do in Vancouver, and as we do on most all of our properties, then it looks better to the street. You can then either leave the deck exposed on the top, or you can hard surface it and put pools or entertainment areas or rooftop terraces.
So, Mark, talk about the density you get, because I think this product fits into some of our suburban areas and our peripheral urban areas. What's that density range per acre?
Well, and we have at the end of my presentation, and I don't know if the whole presentation will be downloadable or not, Derek, but we could provide it to any of your people. We have we call it a cheat sheet. It shows an example of every known density that we know of to show what type of product, whether it's a wrap, a podium, a high-rise, and what kind of units per acre you get. But that we can make available for your audience, and we found that's very, very valuable. But typically, we see a wrap project going from 60 to about 90 units per acre, including the parking garage. So if the magic number in the U.S., and I'm stepping into your territory, Rick, but the magic number in the U.S. is to be over 200 units because the management size, your leasing personnel, the management, and maybe Rick can chime in about this, it gets to be at a better point when it's over 200 units. It takes about the same amount of people to be 150 units as it does 250 to manage them.
Yeah, Rick, do you want to make a comment on that?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent point, Mark. You know, there are some ideal sort of strike zone type properties, and I think sort of that 200 to 350 range in terms of unit count from a management standpoint, from a staffing, from an efficiency. Obviously, everything we do from an operating expense standpoint, you know, when you get smaller than that, it's hard to make that work, and obviously when you get larger than that, there's some other complexities. But I think your point is right on, that if you're in that 200 to 350 range, there's some great efficiencies just from an operational standpoint that you may lose if you get outside of that strike zone, if you will.
Okay, now Mark, that parking structure, what's that made of?
Well,
is it a concrete structure or steel?
No, it's concrete structure. And if there are available precasting plants nearby your site, and if there are available precasting plants nearby your site, that tends to be the cheapest, fastest way to build your parking garage with precast concrete structure.
Okay, so most of our market is, when you do high-density product, is underground parking, which is costing somewhere around $30,000 per car, per spot.
Right.
So
it should be half as much above grade in a parking garage.
Okay. Okay. All right. And do you see this product? I mean, I find this product fascinating because you can build it out of wood. You can still get high density. How does this perform in a more northern climate? Do you have this stuff in Chicago, in Minneapolis, and places like that? Are there any issues that cold weather and snow are going to bring to this?
Well, no. I mean, my parents. I never lived there. My parents used to live in Montreal, and it's similar to Minneapolis as it is to the Dakotas and so forth. And,
yes.
And we've worked in all the northern climates, and as I said, we've done work in Toronto and Montreal. It's the same principles you have on your homes. You try to keep your plumbing off the exterior walls. You can get an insulation value that's fine in a 2x4 wall versus 2x6, just as long as you have the right sheeting and insulation. And I was just talking to somebody yesterday about we're doing our big house product near Minot, North Dakota, where they have that oil shale boom going on. And when we do product with garages and living area above, we make sure that truss space in the garage is tempered, because you don't want to get cold floors or any freezing of pipes there. But no, there's no issue.
Okay, just one more thing. We will be making this webinar available on our webpage for anybody who wants to watch it again, or if you want to have people in your company come and look at it also. Sorry, Mark, keep going.
A new trend that's happening here, and we have received 2 phone calls about this from our friends in Canada, and that is 5- or 6-story wood frame. We're getting inquiries on about how to do it, and this is an example right here. This is a 6-story wood frame project in Dallas, Texas, that you guys will see when you come down. There is no retail on this property. It is a 6-story wood frame with a podium. It won several awards. Here's just the layout of it. Again, the parking garage is below the building. They were competing against a high-rise structure across the street, because the high-rise structure cost about 25% more, no more than that, about 35% more to build than a low-rise. Their thought process was to have a larger plaza area and have higher finish out in their units than the high-rise. And so their belief was they could have lower rent, better finishes, and draw more people. and this was something around 364 units. The last time I was there, they had no vacancies.
Now, Mark, this is a downtownish location?
Yes, it is in an area called West Village, and the buildings I had suggested, I think most of your people are going to be staying somewhere like at the Crescent.
Yeah, we're staying at the Crescent, right.
Right, which is I think all of you will enjoy this area. There's a lot of restaurants and mid-rise and high-rise structures, but again, if we can get over 100 units per acre in wood frame and cut our costs by 35 or 40%, you know, that becomes a calculation on land cost versus returns that some people go that direction.
And I think they've just changed our building code that we can now do 5-story stick in Eastern Canada.
You have.
Good. Yeah, great.
You have. That's the calls we've been getting. Everyone's asking how. We have, back up just one second here. You see this large courtyard, and then there's two small courtyards. We created the space between the two courtyards, and we call that the cave. And so there's kind of this nice space between the two. We're doing the same type of space. It has flat screens in there. In Minneapolis, the only difference in Minneapolis is we have some folding kind of French doors to close off both of the areas in the winter. Here's our pool area. It kind of has this Delano, Miami feel to it. And then the unit plans. We are also seeing very small plans in vogue to get the price per month to the lowest point we can in these urban areas. And this plan is 555 square feet, and you can see it has a small sleeping area off to the right and then a larger living dining on that. We also have a, as I'm sure Rick does, a national buying status with the largest manufacturers like Whirlpool and so forth, and can help some of your guys out on some costs and so forth. But this is another structure. This is 7-story wood frame. Now there's a trick to it, but this is actually down in the Woodlands, and a way to give a concrete look to a building still out of wood frame. This is Gables Residential, a large U.S. developer, and this is, and what I'm trying to go in depth, showing you different phasing of type of projects you can do. This is 7 stories, concrete flat plate, and we stop at 7 because once you go over 7, you're in high-rise code, and basically anything over the length of a hook and ladder truck, and then that changes your pressurization of cabs and all that sort of thing. But this project is under construction, and we're getting, again, at each story, we're adding, 15% to our density, so we're getting up around 125 or 130 units per acre. Now, high-rise, this is in Minneapolis, 27-story. Here's a parking garage, a 500-car parking garage behind those townhomes, similar to what you see in Vancouver. What's unique about this property, as you can tell when I was talking about our E-Urban, I don't like hallways. So we created 2 elevator lobbies and connected this by a fire corridor, and then all the units feed off of these elevator lobbies. And that cuts your efficiency into a much better realm, plus it looks better. Again, the property I mentioned before, I'm just telling a little bit more information about each of these. This is tunnel form. I don't know if you're familiar with tunnel form, but I know most of the structures, high-rise that we've looked at in Canada are flat plate poured in place. We typically use tunnel form or post-tension. Post-tension we can span further with less concrete, and tunnel form we can go faster and it's stronger. But this property won best high-rise residential tower in the United States. Again, you can kind of see some of the tunnels. They're forming systems that are panelized metal, and they fold up, and you can pour twice as many floors a week as you can with conventional systems. Here's the building floor plate, and what we're doing is we're putting these tunnels in. That's in red, and pouring the red portion in concrete, the walls and the ceiling, all at the same time, and then free-forming the rest to not give it too much of a honeycomb look. New projects underway. This is a podium project, but most of the garage is above grade and the building is on top. This is in Denver. We use very small site footprints. We've learned that from our Dubai office. They have little tiny footprints and put a lot of building on there. And typically on our high-rise, we get, pretty close to 200 units per acre. We're also readapting office buildings. This is a highly successful project that was readapted to multifamily on a rail line in Phoenix. Great location. Parking garage was already in place. Just readapted it from a use that was not in need, being office, to apartments. Now, student housing. We're seeing some strong numbers on student housing demand in Canada, but in the U.S., there's a huge demand for that. And what a lot of our clients do is build right off campus, just walking distance from campus. Because typically, if you're trying to build on campus, it'll take you years to get an approval, and the universities, whether in Canada or in the United States, are saying, "Whoa, we don't want this too much of a party place." So, where would you rather live if you were a student? The place that's a lot of fun, or the place on campus? So we're doing a lot of this sort of thing. Just some snippets. This is in Santa Clara. Again, a student housing project. I never lived in anything like that. And Riverside, California. Typically, it's about beds. You want to have a living room, dining room area, a kitchen, but then 4 bedrooms with 4 baths is the secret, and there's certain sizes. We can do all that in 1,400 square feet. And then you may have some 1s, some 2s, and some 3s. Here's Tempe, where we have, again, a 5/1, actually 5/2. There would be a parking garage below, but you have retail on the base. No problem leasing the retail on these deals. Just some more examples. Student housing. Again, we do more than anybody in the country. Work for the top 5 or 6 largest U.S. student housing developers. This is our e-urban, like I showed you before, but in student housing. So they're not paying for a parking garage, so they can get the price right down there. And at 4 stories, we can do 60 or 70 beds per acre. Actually, as high as 80 beds per acre. And at 5 stories, we can do 90 beds per acre surface park. New property, townhome student property. Here's one, a wrap, like we talked about before, and you can see the parking garage in the middle, and in the site plan in the bottom right, and 2 courtyards, and then the building is wrapping most of the parking garage, but this is all student housing, very popular. Suburban, just real quickly, there's been a huge downturn here in buying anything to live in. So this is our big house product, suburban product. Again, I hope it looks like a single-family home about to wrap up here. And this won several awards, 300-some units, but 10 units in a building. Everybody gets their own 1 or 2 car garage. It stacks on top of itself, very affordable to build. Again, more of the property, and we can do it in all different styles. Pool area. I didn't talk a lot about amenities. I thought we might hold that back until you guys are all down in Dallas. You can see stuff in person. But we're doing, since this is going after the single-family market, but as a for rent, you do a nice clubhouse facility. This has a teaching kitchen in it, so they can have neat events in there and do cooking lessons and so forth. At the same time, on all of our properties in the U.S., we're doing charging stations now, either in the parking garage or out in front, because we're seeing a high demand for electric cars. I just put in some statistical information here. Again, if you download it, you can see the pricing. In U.S. dollars, this is $76 per square foot times the net rentable to build. This is the building plan. Again, you can study it later, seeing how they stack on top of each other. Everybody gets a garage. And I'm going quickly, just a lot of information to cover and some of the floor plans. We target women in this product because we believe the women are making the decision and looking at larger storage areas, larger master bedroom closets, and adequate sink areas and so forth. Actually, in the bottom floor plan is our bigger 2-bedroom at 1,200 square feet, and it has 2 eating areas, a small kitchen nook and a dining area, because they feel like if it has those 2 areas, then it doesn't feel like it's an apartment. It feels like a home. Site plan, a lot of little buildings. And then here's one in San Diego, another one in San Diego, all extremely successful. 368 units in this project. In San Diego, it was about $100 a foot. This is in the Maryland market. Another one in the Maryland market. Again, looks just like a quaint little single-family home. Again, we do green reviews of all of our projects. This student housing deal in San Diego. And I'm showing it because it's the greenest student housing project in the United States. 100% of the common area is paid for by PV panels and 30% of the residential power. So that'll add to your net operating income. It's an easy calculation. Just some future things. We're very into what's new and possible. There's all kinds of options out there, but on units today, if you're targeting these echo boomer kids, they're not looking for a lot of crown molding and heavy. On units today, if you're targeting these echo boomer kids, they're not looking for a lot of crown molding and heavy colors and all that. You know, they want something new and different. White would be cool, no crown molding, a neat look. And I was just showing an electric car battery, and we were playing around with the idea of storing our own energy on some of these properties. But also, this technology's been around for a while, where you can see images through the mirror, you know, TV and so forth. But now we're looking at adding messaging systems to this too. So the young lady's getting ready in the restroom, and she's checking her messages. Then that brings me to future trends. Countertops. I have 3 daughters, everybody, and they're all in college and they're all in apartments. And I interviewed them what they were looking for in an apartment, and they gave me all different things. They're looking for storage and looking for light and want to be where the action is and all that stuff. And I asked one of them, what do you think about granite? And Cassie, Cassandra, she said, what do you mean, Daddy? What about granite? And I said, granite countertops. And she said, well, isn't that what you and Mom have? So the point is, she's grown up her whole life with granite, so it's time to do something new and different. There's porcelain countertops. We're also looking at resin-based with glass in it. This is a new and different look, edgy, and feels like the future to me. And if you follow all these ideas and have a great management team and all of us help you with your next project, I think you will see your first day of opening looking like this.
That's terrific. Yeah, that's terrific. Well, Mark, thank you very much. That was just a fabulous presentation, and as I said earlier, we'll make this available to all the people after we're recording this, and we'll send you a link to be able to listen to it. So I think it's fair to say that Canada, it's time to build new apartments. So I'm going to wrap up the next 10 or 15 minutes just showing you the state of the Canadian apartment industry and the opportunities that exist. I think it's fair to say that new apartment construction represents the best and maybe the safest real estate development opportunities across the country. So the first issue is financing. Can you get these things financed? Well, I think we're fortunate in Canada to have CMHC financing, and interest rates are at historically low rates. So the money is available there at very favorable interest rates, and cap rates have definitely compressed. Our new product is selling in the, in the 5 to 6 cap range, maybe the low and maybe the low 5s. And possibly below that for Main and Main type locations in downtown cities. There is definitely a chronic shortage of institutional quality apartment buildings. So we have more and more people, both Canadian institutions as well as foreign people now, are looking at Canada, and they want to be in the apartment sector for its stability, but they can't find the institutional quality product that they can find in office and retail and things like that. So there's definitely investor demand for apartments. From a demographic standpoint, I think we know about the baby boomer and the young professionals who are looking for those urban locations, and they're going to favor amenity over space. So Rick mentioned that the apartment units are getting smaller, but the amenities are getting bigger and more elaborate. Also, Canada takes in twice as many, maybe 3 times as many immigrants per capita as America. So when renters first come here, and many of them are wealthy, it's logical for them to rent. So because we've had so little new apartment construction in Canada, it's sort of difficult for the developer to know, well, is there any demand? Well, in most cities, there hasn't been any new construction in 30 years and the population has grown. So there is demand, but how do you prove it up? Well, these are the factors that you've got to look at a sort of a macro level when you're determining should you build apartments or not. You know, job growth, population growth, and all those items on the table there. So we do new apartment construction feasibilities, and we do probably 10 to 15 of those per year, and we're definitely seeing that part of our business pick up. And in these feasibility studies that we do them quite independently of the developer. We don't want to be biased by his views. We want to go out there and study the marketplace, the demand, and so on, and come back to them. And really we answer 6 questions. Question number 1 is, should you build? Yes or no? Question number 2, what should you build? That means type of product, unit sizes, amenities. Question number 3, how much can you charge? Question number 4, what's the depth of the market? Question number 5, who will buy what I build? And question number 6, how much money can I make if I build a rental apartment? And I think it's fair that many people have been saying you can't build rental apartments and make them work. Well, at the beginning of the presentation, I showed you 15 buildings that our clients have built and we've sold, and I think I can assure you that they made a profit on it. And the picture is getting better with the demand going up, cap rates going down, and interest rates staying low. So sort of the national picture, I think it's fair to say that purpose-built rental apartments rode out the recession in 2008 very well. It was the best performing asset class in real estate, and generally apartments give you a good rate of return during tough economic times. During the recession in Canada, there were no distressed sales. There were no bargains. Sales volumes dropped off, but they're back now nicely again. So in terms of new apartment construction, the national picture, we set out, about 6 months ago to count every new apartment building in Canada. I don't know if we've got every one, but we counted 400. So after the year 2000, we think there have been 400, well, at least 400 new buildings built across the country, but it's certainly varied in terms of intensity. So the 2 areas that had the most amount of apartments built were London, Ontario, and Halifax led the ways. But there are good opportunities across the country, and just let me illustrate. I'm going to very quickly go through each province and make a quick comment and then show you a montage of the apartment buildings that have been built. And this will all be part of our new apartment construction report that will be out in a couple of months. Just keep checking our webpage, and we'll get you a copy. So in British Columbia, Vancouver and Victoria are the big markets, but there were more apartment buildings than we thought built in British Columbia. So these are the photographs of these buildings, and we'll be having a lot more details of them in the future. Alberta, the biggest apartments are Edmonton and Calgary, but it's certainly a resource-based province, and you're seeing a lot of growth in Fort McMurray. I think it might be fair to say that you can now build wood frame apartments, cheaper than what it costs to buy old apartments in Alberta today. Prices have been so high, but you'll see that there's been a fair bit of construction in Edmonton. There's been some in Calgary, Fort McMurray, and then in some of the other smaller centers in Alberta. In Saskatchewan, Manitoba, in the north, there's been some construction. Quickly just show you some pictures there. You see there's also been some new construction in the Northwest Territories. Now in Ontario, again, interesting that southwestern Ontario is probably the leader in new apartment construction across the country. London's had at least 6,600 units built in the last 10 years. Waterloo region, where there are 2 big prominent universities, Laurier and University of Waterloo, has seen a lot of student housing built, and student housing is the topic for the future. We're just going to touch on it here today. I think on our Dallas tour, we're going to tour 1 student housing building just to give you a flavor for it. And this area's economy is independent of the GTA, but there's certainly a lot of new apartment construction that's been built in southwestern Ontario. London has by far more new apartment construction than anywhere. And remember now, London is a city of 400,000 or so people, and it's been able to support 20 or 30 new buildings in the last 10 years. You can also see new construction has occurred in Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, and in Sarnia also. Again, this isn't everything, but we think we got the majority of buildings across the country. If anybody, by the way, who's listening, has some buildings that that have been built that you think we might not know about it, we'd sure like a heads up on it. In terms of the GTA, we've had about 8,000 units built since 2000, and that's small compared to the 12,800 units built in southwestern Ontario, and the population here is 10 times that of London. Most of the new construction has occurred in the city of Toronto and in Brampton. So you've got just ideal scenarios here in Toronto. You know, low vacancy rates, probably the highest rents in the country, maybe outside of Vancouver, and all the cities are looking for increase in density and things like that. So I think new construction in Toronto is long overdue. And here's a snippet of the new construction that we've seen occurring in Toronto in the last 10 years or so. See Brampton, Burlington, and some of the outer areas also. In Eastern Ontario, really here we're talking about Ottawa and Kingston. You know, Ottawa has a large market. It's seen as a very, very stable market. I would argue the cap rates in Ottawa today are the same as Toronto, maybe even a little better. Kingston's had steady building of apartments also, and in fact, 11% of Kingston's apartment universe is built after 2000. So that's a relatively new percentage of product base in the marketplace. Quebec does not have a lot of apartments built, and that's a little strange because Quebec is a strong renter market. You know, Montreal has, I think, 14 renters for 100 people. Toronto has 10 apartments per 100 people. So I think Montreal probably, and rents are strong, and the culture there is to rent. So there's been some construction in Montreal and a little more going on right now, but I think that's a marketplace that could do with a lot of construction. Atlantic Canada has been I think, a terrific surprise to us when we did this study. There have been 6,000 units built in Halifax since 2000. You know, a strong economy there, and most of the starts there are not condos. They're actually purpose-built rental product. In Toronto, we've got a lot of multifamily being developed, but the majority of the starts are in fact, almost all of the new construction in Toronto is condo. In Halifax, it's the reverse. Almost all of it is rental product and good rental product. And there's also been development in Moncton, Fredericton, St. John's, Charlottetown, and St. John's also. So the economy in the east is good. There's new construction occurring in many places. And I'll just show you some quick photographs here of Halifax product. You're not seeing the really tall high rises, but you are seeing, you know, a number of, you know, 6-story concrete, 7-story concrete, and so on, and then some wood frame product. You can see the rest in Atlantic Canada, and I think that's mainly frame product.